Okay, so today we're going to go into share buybacks and why, what are they? So share buybacks is simply a company buys its own shares in order to artificially increase the value of that share. Okay, obviously if you buy, it sends a buy signal, so therefore the value of the share goes up, because let's say it was 100p, I'll say I want to buy it at 110p, so the value of the share goes to 110p, that's the way it goes, right? Okay. So this was banned between 1930 and 1983 because of market manipulation. It causes market manipulation. Now, what has happened? Let's look at it before what happened and let's look after. Before 1983, companies made earnings. Let's say they made $100 million. Then they had a choice of what to do with it. Either to invest in the future production, new technologies, new plants, people, or hand it out as dividends, right, to all the shareholders. And in the 80s, the dividend yield on an average share was 6%. Okay, so quite a very, very good return that is for an average. Imagine someone more, 10, 12%, right? It's a very good yield, and you also invested in the future. What happened after 1983? Share buybacks started occurring. 60 billion in total for the stock market in America per year in the 80s. 200 billion per year in the 90s, 600 billion per year in the 2000s, and 2010s, over $1 trillion per year is spent on share buybacks. Pure market manipulation, companies buying their own shares. So why is it bad? So obviously we had 6% yield before, now dividend yield on average is 1%, and all the big names you know of don't pay any dividends. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook do not pay dividends. That's it. You are only looking at that share price. Before then, share price didn't really move that much. If any, you didn't really care. You were getting 6% guaranteed on average, some 10, some 12. And now it doesn't matter what you do, you're getting on average 1%. So you have to go for share buybacks. Now, why is it bad? Why is it market manipulation? The first reason, how do the C-suite, the CFO, CEO get their pay? Stock options. What do they want to boost? Stock price. What happens if they make a loss? Share buyback. These guys can never lose. These sick animals never lose because they just buy their own shares back and inflate the value. So therefore, when they sell their stock option, they're always in the money. They never lose. While a worker, if things are bad, let's say at the same time, he will lose his job. The company will go through mass redundancy, but the C-suite will actually go and take out loans in order to inflate the value of the shares in order that they come out clear. Now, what's even more sick? When do they do these share buybacks? They always do it at the time of when big announcements are coming out. Always. And when do these C-suites sell their shares? Always at the time of big announcements. Let's give you the best example. Pfizer. You know what they did? They invented a multi-billion-dollar product in November 22 that is absolutely useless, but they invented it and they announced it in November 2020. When did Borrella, the CEO, sell 60% of his share stock? 1 week later. What did they clearly announce before? A share buyback. What happened to the share price after the announcement of this multi-billion product? 1 week later, he sells 60%. Now, they cannot sell whenever they want. They have to pre-plan their sales 6 months before. They're not allowed to sell like that. So obviously he knew this he said 6 months before, I'm going to sell here. He also knows my announcement of this multi-billion product will be just before in order to allow for an increase in the stock market. And he will announce a share buyback to ensure it goes up even further. Market manipulation gets worse. All those shareholders used to enjoy the benefits of dividends. With share buybacks, it's only those people that buy cheap and then share buyback, and then it stops, and then it would plummet. If, let's say, there's no good news, it will plummet, right? And therefore, only those clever insiders, who know when it's happening. Institutional investors, BlackRock, JP Morgan, they know when it's going to stop. They know when this, doesn't matter how bad the news result is, they know when to sell it. All the other shareholders get left with a bag. So let's give you a very good example. Apple, they announced in 2019 that they would stop revealing iPhone sales numbers. Why? Because iPhone sales were going off a cliff. They weren't. The price was going up, the profit was going up, but the sales were bombing. So that's bad news, because obviously that means your sales are going down. What do? Don't worry. Share buyback. Guaranteed. Even on bad news, the share goes up. To save the institutional investors. Again, those people, those shareholders at the bottom, they're not getting any. Until you sell, you don't get anything. You've not realized any of the potential. And then what happens with your Apple share? Every single insider, Jamie Dimon, in December 2021, peak of the stock market, Jamie Dimon sold his JP Morgan shares, 60 billion sold by Elon Musk, pretending for Twitter, but really we know he was never going to go ahead with it. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, every big guy sold their shares in December 21. And now what happened? All the stock markets went down 30%. Who holds the bag? All those other dumb dividend shareholders. They're holding the bag. All the institutional sold using the share buybacks that was used, and therefore sold at a very high price, and they're very good. The number three, a stock market, a share price is meant to reflect the value of that company. But with share buybacks, you distort the value of the company. You can make it look really good, like Apple, right? $2 trillion worth more than all the companies in the UK. Obviously, it's not. It's just share buybacks. That's all they do, right? That's what they do. And worse, if a company is in a bad predicament, they're losing money, they will take out a debt to then perform share buybacks to keep their shares going up. It is total market manipulation. It totally benefits only a small segment, and that's what they want. All that money, before we said $100 million made, I have to spread it out to all the shareholders every year. Why? Now I just benefit a certain amount of people, and that's why we see C-suite remuneration packages have gone from about 30 times the average worker to 400, 500 times the average worker. It's become absurd because of this. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. You do share buybacks, the institutional investors have your back, and we'll make sure that you obviously will vote through your completely inflated and absurd remuneration package. You will then perform share buybacks, correct? You won't give it out as dividends. You'll perform share buybacks. Yeah, we'll perform share buybacks. Yeah, we do it. You sign off on my $100 million package for doing terrible results, for not producing for the future. They don't even invest now. 43% of companies on the Dow Jones don't have $1 on their R&D on their balance sheet. 43% don't even invest in the future. They couldn't care less. This is where we are. Everyone, wake up and smell the coffee. Share buybacks is an absolute fraud. And it is being done $1 trillion. All that money that they earn is just refunneled into share buybacks, helping the rich become richer, the institutional investors, and everyone else, the pension funds that hold those things, your 401ks, yeah? You seen the price go up. You bunch of idiots, you were getting 6% guaranteed yield before, right? Now you're getting, we've got at least another 30% correction in all the markets coming up. You could be getting nothing. You could be getting nothing. And then they bankrupt the companies by taking loans to perform share buybacks just so their tenure is only 8 years. They just want to see that 8 year through max. That's all they want to see. They couldn't care less if they waste there's no R&D money. They'll take out loans to perform share buybacks. It's totally corrupt. It was banned. We had a good system before and we corrupted it. Disgrace, all you Federal Reserve.